Welcome friends to another r/am I the jerk here video. Would you be the jerk for canceling a holiday over somebody bringing their kid along? We'll find out, but first a story from throwaway 0999099. Am I the jerk for blowing up on my fiancé in front of his family for getting my daughter's cat out of the house? I, female 35, got engaged to my fiancé Eric, male 37, 2 months ago. He moved in with me and my daughter Zoe, female 13. Everything was going well till he started complaining about Zoe's cat, which is strange because the cat's so sweet and quiet most of the time, so I had no idea what the issue was exactly. Anyways, he went from complaining about the cat to making demands about her. He gave Zoe a list of places the cat can and can't go, things she's allowed to touch, banned her from places like the kitchen and sofa, Zoe's favorite place to cuddle with her cat. Zoe showed me this list and I had an argument with him, telling him he needed to stop this because it was ridiculous. He ranted about this being his house too and how he expects things to change after we get married. A few days ago, I was at work and got a call from Zoe crying saying her cat wasn't in her room and in the house. I freaked out too and went home to look for her. Zoe and I looked for 2 hours before a neighbor of ours brought her and told us that he saw Eric leaving her outside and getting in his car and leaving. I was surprised and quite angry. Zoe took her cat and went back inside. I immediately drove to my future in-laws home where Eric said he'd be. The second I saw him sitting with his family, I went off and blew up at him in front of everyone. His mom asked what was happening, and I told her son got my daughter's indoor cat outside the house, probably hoping for her to get lost. He argued about wanting me to stop spouting nonsense and go home and we'd talk there, but I refused. It got worse, and I ended up leaving after his family flipped out at him. He sent a bunch of texts talking about the stunt I pulled in front of his family. He said that he didn't mean to leave the cat out, but after checking the cams, I confirmed it. He still insisted that I humiliated him in front of his family and tried to turn them against him. He's been staying with a friend and he stopped calling and texting. Am I the jerk for blowing up on him in front of his family? I think OP is pretty clearly not the jerk here. And would you guys agree with me when I say that wholeheartedly this is not trying to turn their family against them? And if his family is turning all against him, it's because he did something extremely messed up and not because OP was lobbying for it? And also, do you think this relationship is salvageable after all this? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Our next story is from Hangry Hippo. Am I the jerk for having a snack? For background, I'm recovering from an eating disorder. Part of my recovery means that if I'm hungry, I need to eat. I need to get used to responding to hunger by eating. If I don't eat when I'm hungry, it can become a habit, and I could relapse. I know that's hard for a lot of people to understand, but it's the best way I can explain it. I always carry snacks to accommodate this. My boyfriend asked me to go to a family event with him at his aunt's house. Dinner was at 6:30, but the gathering started at 4, and we were on time. Around 5:30, I started to feel hungry, so I ate a small granola bar from my purse to reinforce the eat when you're hungry rule. Dinner was at 6:30, and excellent. When we left, my boyfriend was upset. He said I offended his family by eating a snack before dinner was served and implied they were bad hosts. He said I should have waited. I reminded him that I have to eat when I'm hungry. He said dinner was in an hour and should have been sufficient to enforce the rule. But it doesn't work that way. I have to eat as soon as I realize I'm hungry, or it's a slippery slope that could lead to me going days without food. Boyfriend was angry and accused me of just wanting attention and being inconsiderate. Should I have waited? Was I being too rigid? I think OP is clearly not the jerk here. They clearly have a program they need to stick to. And for this guy to not even respect it, but somehow try to turn it into OP's attention seeking? That is such a stretch and it blows my mind. If anybody's too rigid, it's the boyfriend. Our next story is from Come Rain or Thunder. Am I the jerk for telling my sister I'll no longer give her my breast milk? I, 28-year-old female, had a stillbirth 5 weeks ago. My sister gave birth to a healthy baby boy 4 weeks ago. After my stillbirth, I was producing milk and pumping, and my sister couldn't breastfeed after her son was born. Formula shortage was awful and I was literally throwing my milk away, so I offered it to my sister and she gladly accepted. I was advised by the doctors to pump for 3 weeks after the stillbirth to prevent problems for me and then stop, otherwise I'd just keep producing milk. Due to the formula shortage, I've been pumping for 5 weeks now to give the milk to my sister. Now that there's more formula in stock and she's been able to go buy it, I told her I'll stop pumping. She told me her son has stomach problems after the formula and asked me to keep pumping. I told her I emotionally can't handle it any longer. She said I'm being selfish and she already has to feed her son by bottle because she at first suggested I'd just nurse him for his daily feedings at least. We live next door and I refused. I told her I'm sorry and I can pump for a few more days so she can put some in the freezer and have some backup until she finds a better formula for her son, but she said breast milk is healthiest and I should just help her out. She called me a selfish jerk and said I'm the embodiment of misery loves company. My mother feels I should help my own sister out. My husband said my sister's way out of line. I feel really awful because I could still help her out and I know she needs it. I think OP's clearly not the jerk here. First of all, just for their emotional sake, I think it needs to stop. OP via guilt shouldn't keep going forward with something that's clearly going to affect them negatively like that. But second of all, and clearly I can't attest to this, but I can't imagine doing all this pumping is very much fun. I think formula is more than good enough. It's not OP's child, it's affecting them emotionally. I think they have every right to stop. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Every video has awesome stories, like our next one from Toddler Nightmare. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that if she wants to dictate sleep schedules for our kids, she's welcome to be a stay-at-home mom? My wife and I, both early 30s, have 2 sons, an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we're also raising her niece, 5-year-old currently because her parents are in rehab. I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife works. When we had our oldest, my wife was a stay-at-home mom for a little over a year, and then she decided to go back to work. She makes more money than I do, and I was really happy to spend time with our son, so I agreed to stay home, take care of our son, and do the housekeeping. After we had the 2-year-old, the agreement stayed in place. My wife still wanted to work. My wife has severe anxiety, and being at home with the kids all day would really impact her mental health. Her niece came to live with us 8 months ago, and it's looking like she'll stay for much longer, maybe even permanently. She's a lovely girl, but was raised by drug addicts, so her routine was basically non-existent. I made a solid routine in our house for her, as in chores, sleep schedule, etc., and she's adjusted really well. My wife works 8 to 5. The kids wake up at 7, then my wife takes the 8-year-old to school and I'm home with the other 2. The 8-year-old goes to bed at 8 p.m., the 5-year-old at 7:30 p.m., and the 2-year-old at 7 p.m. A few days ago, my wife told me her niece wants us to move her sleep hour to 8 p.m., same as our 8-year-old. I told her no because our 8-year-old has more chores because he's older and uses the extra 30 minutes he has at night to watch his favorite cartoon without little brother and cousin interrupting him constantly, which they do because, well, he is the big brother. My wife got really pissed at me and said I'm treating her niece unfairly because she isn't mine. I said that's ridiculous. She told me we may someday adopt her and I need to treat her like my own. I told her I do treat her like my own, and a regular sleep schedule is what I maintain for all my children. It's not like the 8-year-old can stay up later than agreed or the 2-year-old can skip naps just because he hates sleep. She called me a biased father and a jerk for putting my kids before her niece. I told her if I'm such a horrible father, she's welcome to be a stay-at-home mom and deal with the kids while I go to work. She was really hurt. Am I the jerk here? Personally, I think everything OP's doing here sounds more than reasonable, and as far as schedules go, was honestly way more than I ever had as a kid. This isn't some situation where OP's only getting gifts for their biological kids and leaving the niece out. This is a 30-minute difference in when they go to bed. The reasoning makes total sense to me. Our next story is from some sick anime weeb. Am I the jerk for not wanting to leave my home for my sister's comfort? My sister, female 20, and I, female 16, have recently come into some conflict over a business trip our mom will be taking at the end of September. My older sister, for whatever reason, does not want me to stay in the house for the first 2 days of our mom's trip, and keeps pushing and trying to convince me to stay with a family friend of ours or my best friend's house. My issue being, it's right before school starts, and during that time, I'm normally really anxious. And I wouldn't want to impose on my best friend's family that close to school, especially because their youngest is starting year 1. I also don't want to stay with my family friend because, as much as I love them, their little ones would only stress me out. and I'd prefer to sleep in my bed. My older sister and I got into a fight a few weeks ago, and we haven't brought it up since, but I really don't think I'm wrong for not wanting to leave the house I also live in. Another reason being, we have 4 pets. Her dog and my cats, I paid for and still pay for them as they're my cats. I trust her, but I would still prefer not to be away from my babies. She refuses to tell me why she doesn't want me in the house, but I'm suspecting there could be 2 reasons. One of which is because she wants alone time, or because she thinks she'll need to take care of me. I told her if she wanted alone time for those 2 to 3 days, I could just stay in my room and only come out when I need to. Not a problem for me because I'm on the 2nd floor with my own bathroom. I also told her that if she's worried about taking care of me, that's not a problem because I'm 16. I have a job and I'm fully capable of keeping myself alive for a few days. I think OP's not the jerk. I feel like almost anybody would not want to get kicked out of their own house. If you ask me, my money would have been on they want their partner to come over and they want some real isolated time. But I think OP's not the jerk for not wanting to leave their own house so that somebody else can just enjoy it for themselves instead. This next story is from meetdefeater88. Am I the jerk for threatening to kick my wife's maid of honor out of our wedding? My fiance and I are getting married next year. I very recently proposed and we decided to get planning early. My fiance had this friend Alice. I don't like to use this word, but Alice is a huge witch. She hates me for no reason, like literally no reason. When I first met her and my fiance's other girlfriends, she was very cold to me and was very clearly disapproving of me, and multiple times asked my now fiance why the heck she's with me. I think it's partially because my presence caused a big change in my fiance's life. She used to be a bit more loose with her morals, partied a lot, drank more, hooked up a lot, and these are all things that Alice still does. I also think that part of her is jealous and angry that Alice found herself a good man. So at our engagement party, Alice was not happy at all. She would glare at me across the room, wouldn't have fun, and was just trying to bring the mood down. Eventually, my fiance and I spoke to her. My fiance was then pulled away by another girl. I decided then was a good time to settle things. I told her that my fiance chose me, not her. I said she needs to get over her silly little grudge towards me. I reminded her that it was my wedding and that I could have her out of it so fast, and I knew my fiance would too, as, once again, she chose me over her. Alice was visibly pissed and upset. I moved on, but the damage was done. Alice told my fiance what I said, and she told me I was being a huge jerk and needed to apologize. I said that I would after Alice did. She refuses. I was accused of being passive-aggressive and rude. My fiance's convinced I was the jerk, and Alice is innocent. Am I the jerk? I think OP is the jerk here. Admittedly, while Alice does not seem like a very nice person to be around, OP is just eating off of all that radiation they're spewing and turning around and giving them more than enough reason to actually be upset at OP. Our next story is from GermanCat34. Am I the jerk for not giving my sister my unused twin bed set for her daughter? I, 26 female, and my sister, Megan, 36 female, have been in an argument for the past day because I refused to give her my twin bed set for her 4-year-old daughter. In the master bedroom of my house, I have a bed for myself and a nice tall twin bed set I used as a dog bed for my 3 German shepherds. The bed is super cute and equipped with everything from dinosaur bed sheets to large plushy pillows in the shape of bones and T-Rexes. Since the first day my sister found out she was pregnant, she's been demanding handouts from everyone in the family. My sister was not, nor is currently financially stable or able to support having a child. Instead of getting a job, she mostly guilt trips my mother and stepfather into paying for everything she and the child needs. My sister recently moved back into town and was unable to bring most of her things from her previous house due to her having to leave in a hurry. 2 days ago, my sister came and visited me at my house for the first time since I bought the place over 2 years ago. My sister was expecting me to live, and I quote, in a crap shack, but was quite surprised to find out I live in a quiet, comfortable home filled with nice things I take care of. When my sister saw the master bedroom, she noticed the second bed I used for the dogs. and commented on how stupid it was that I spent my money on a separate bed just for my dogs. Walking through my house, my sister treated it like a shopping trip and constantly pointed out things I should give her for her new apartment that my mother and stepfather are paying for. But she seemed to be most fixated on the bed I use for my dogs. She was constantly pointing out how her daughter could really use a bed since she would be having to share with my sister until they can afford a separate bed for my niece. The entire time I stonewall my sister and refuse to give her any of the items in my house. Eventually, my sister left disappointed and quite fussy. The next day, I woke up to messages from my mother, stepfather, sister's friends, and even her baby daddy, all saying that I'm cruel and that it's unfair for me to not give my sister the twin bed, especially if it's not even being used. My stepfather's been trying to play peacekeeper and has offered to pay me in secret for me to give my sister the bed as a housewarming present. I am not interested in giving my sister the bed, nor any of the other items in my house as a housewarming present or otherwise. Am I the jerk? If OP wants to give up anything of their own to their sister, great. But OP's not obligated to, and they're definitely not the jerk here. And I think they're especially not the jerk for not giving up anything after their sister basically said, "Oh, I'll take this and that and this and that, and I'll also take that bed." The only thing I'd want to give somebody after all that is a certain hand gesture. Our next story is from South Ad 6014. Am I the jerk for not letting the marathon cyclists cut through my land as they've been doing for years? My husband and I bought a home with 15 acres back 4 months ago. On our land, we have 2 gates on either side of the field. It was once used for farming, and it's a good distance from my actual house, probably about 4 acres. Well, last week, we received a mail notice with a reminder to open both gates for the upcoming bike marathon thing that they apparently have every year to allow access to the cyclists to cut through to get back to the main road. Neither my husband or I are okay with this. First, I truly don't want a bunch of cyclists on my property. As it is already, we can't do anything that day because our whole street is blocked off. Not only that, but this was not mentioned in the sale of the home either. If any of these people were to get hurt on my land, I would be deemed responsible, and it was not something I was willing to accommodate to. So I go to the town hall and tell them that our property was not going to be used as a shortcut for cyclists to get back to the main road, and said they would need to find an alternative route. It was argued that this is how things have been for 6 years, and that it would take far too much time to map out a different route on such short notice. I told them that's not my problem. Well, the day came and went. We kept the gates closed, and despite the fact that these cyclists were supposedly told they couldn't use our property, a lot of them still showed up and got pissed that the gate was closed. I was outside doing gardening when one of the cyclists started berating me for not having it open, stating that I was a selfish Karen, and stated, "Look at me, afraid of bikes, let me be a runt about it." Am I the jerk? I think OP's definitely not the jerk, especially when they got blindsided with this information. I think people who would allow for such a thing to happen with the shortcut are saints for allowing such a thing. But with new owners moving in, they can't expect to just keep cutting through somebody's privately owned land. And I think anybody that expects to openly do so, they're the real jerks here. Maybe we should reroute the cycling thing to go through their backyard too. This next story is from Eva Straya. Am I the jerk for not giving my adopted daughter a stuffed animal for her high school graduation when both of my biological children got one? I, 49-year-old female, have 3 children, 22-year-old female, 19-year-old male, and 18-year-old female. My oldest 2 are my biological children from a previous marriage, and my youngest I became a mother to at the age of 2 when I married her widowed father. She's only ever called me mom, and I officially adopted her at the age of 12. Now on to the issue with the stuffed animals. Years and years ago, when I was only 20 and in college, I worked at a children's museum. I adored the job and working with kids, and had the idea to buy stuffed animals from the gift shop to be my future kids' first stuffed animals whenever they were born. I had gotten a stuffed bear at birth that was very special to me growing up. And on my 18th birthday, my parents gifted me a duplicate they had bought way back when and kept for me all these years. I found this so special and wanted to do something similar, so I bought 6 stuffed animals from the museum's gift shop, 3 to be given at birth, and 3 duplicates. I had no idea at the time how many kids I would have, but I knew I wasn't planning on having more than 3, so I didn't get any more. My first daughter received the stuffed animal I selected for her while pregnant. Then, between her birth and the birth of my son, I miscarried. The experience was deeply traumatic for me, especially as I miscarried in my second trimester, and I buried my baby with the stuffed animal they would have gotten. I kept the duplicate too for comfort, to cuddle and hold. Finally, my son was born and received the last of the stuffed animals I'd set aside so many years ago. Now, here's where I may be the jerk. For both my daughter and son's high school graduations, I surprised them with the duplicates. For them to take to college with them and compare against the stuffies they've been loving on their whole lives. Both were very moved by this and took both original and duplicate to school with them. My youngest, however, never received a stuffed animal. And so when her graduation celebration rolled along, I had no duplicate to gift her. I watched her unpack all her gifts and her face fall when she got to the last one and realized. She didn't really say anything, just got the super sad look on her face and excused herself to her room. I followed to ask what was wrong, but she said she didn't want to talk to me. So her father went in instead. According to him, she cried to him that she didn't feel as loved by me as her siblings and as much a part of the family. The unwrapping of her sibling stuffed animals were very emotional events, and she had had the expectation she'd be getting the same. In hindsight, I could have easily done something similar for her when I first came into her life, even if it wouldn't have been from the museum, but I just didn't think of it. She's been cold to me this entire last week, and I feel so terrible. I've offered to take her out to a special dinner for the two of us to make amends, but she turned me down. Am I the jerk? This is a really tough one for me, but I think OP is the jerk. I think that idea in general is a fabulous thing, and something honestly that if I have kids, that seems like such a great idea. But doing that for your first 2 kids, and when your third comes into your life, just not ever thinking of it, it comes off as kind of forgetful or less caring. I still want to believe though that OP had the best of intentions. But there was a long time that passed, and whether you got a stuffed animal for them as soon as they came into your life, 2 years into them being in your life, 4 years, I think it would have made the same impact. It's just OP never did that for their third kid. Our next story is from Bluetooth888. Am I the jerk for asking my son to get a paternity test? My son, 18, has found out one of his ex-girlfriends is 8 months pregnant. He knew nothing of the sort of her being pregnant until now, and now he's just expected to accept everything, no questions asked. My daughter, 20, is good friends with this girl and knew about her pregnancy but said nothing to us because her friend asked her not to. My son was head over heels for this lady, but she ended up breaking his heart by cheating on him and was very needy and manipulative. He spent a lot of money on her because she would ask for gifts my son couldn't even afford, and convinced him to use one of my credit cards to achieve it. My daughter, who isn't currently living with us and is actually rooming with her by her college, is also being manipulated by her and thinks she only does good and doesn't believe that she convinced her brother to use my credit or that she even cheated on him. Showed up with my son's ex-girlfriend at my door to help her tell us that she's pregnant. When I saw her there at my door, visually pregnant, I knew she was going to be saying that my son is the father of her child, and immediately said that my son will not be putting in any money or time until there is a paternity test proving that this is his child. My son backed me up and agreed. My daughter was horrified by my comment and accused me of encouraging him to be a deadbeat father, and was upset I didn't even give them a chance to explain themselves. My son's ex started crying, saying, "You always assumed the worst of me and that she went through 8 months of pregnancy alone, and the least we could do is ensure she's taken care of for the betterment of his child." I do agree that if this is his child, we're going to ensure mom is doing well to ensure baby is doing well, but I don't want my son to be involved with her only to get his heart broken again and only to find out that the child isn't his. Am I the jerk here? Man, I think OP could not be any bit of a jerk here. The bottom line here, I think in any pregnancy, if there's any question of a doubt, that father deserves to get a paternity test. And I also think if the mom isn't lying, there should be no hesitation to get said paternity test because they would know the results. So clearly them immediately breaking down and saying, "You always assume the worst of me," to me kind of implicates the worst of them. This next story is from AITA. Am I the jerk for telling my brother there's a reason no one likes him? I, 17-year-old male, have a little brother, 7-year-old male. He's a brat. If it's somebody's birthday, he'll make it all about him and basically have a tantrum when someone gets more attention than him. I broke my leg in January, and he cried because I was getting more attention than him. It was my birthday. I went out most of the day with friends, and when I came back, my parents got me cake. They were singing happy birthday when I was gonna blow out my candles when my little crap of a brother did it for me. I know it's candles, but it's just satisfying to blow them out. I asked him why'd he do that for, and he said, "My birthday," like a baby. My parents told me to let it go, it's only candles. I told them there's a reason why he still acts like a brat, and it's because of them. My brother started punching me, didn't hurt. I got down to his level and calmly said, "There's also a reason why no one likes you. You're a brat." He started screaming and crying, and my parents yelled at me. I couldn't be bothered for their BS, so I went to my room. Later, my brother came in and threw a toy car at my eye. I told my parents and he didn't get into trouble. I did. My parents are saying I'm a crappy brother for yelling at him when he's only 7. He should stop acting like that at 7. So am I the jerk? I think OP's definitely not the jerk, and I agree with everything they said here. The parents are to blame for that kid being a total brat, and it sure sounds like they have zero interest in curbing that behavior. And our final story of the day is from Applet757767. Am I the jerk for canceling the trip after my fiancé decided to bring her 10-year-old son with us? I, male 33, have been with Natalie, female 32, for 2 years. We're getting married soon and she shares custody of her 10-year-old son with her ex-husband. Ever since her ex-husband got sick, Natalie kept bringing her son over more often. Sometimes her mom would take him due to work, etc. We've been having issues because of that, because Natalie has to bring my stepson with us whenever we go. We've started going out less and less. Since it's been a month since we've gone out, and since her ex has gotten better, I've arranged for a trip to the beach for the weekend. It's supposed to be a couple's getaway. She was excited for it and prepared for everything. The night before the trip, she comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tom is sick again, and he asked if I could take Taylor to spend the weekend with us." I was gobsmacked. I asked what she told him, and she said she agreed. She then proceeded to tell me that she'd like to take Taylor with us to the beach. I got upset and told her to not bother because the trip was officially canceled. She looked at me shocked, but I told her she shouldn't act shocked and surprised after she successfully ruined yet another opportunity for us to have quality alone time together. She went on about how she couldn't believe that I expect her to ditch her son since her mom was busy as well and getting a babysitter wasn't on the table. I just shrugged and told her it was done, and then I walked out. I went with the guys instead, and she's been upset with me about it, saying I could have just agreed to let my stepson Taylor come with us, and we would have at least had some family time together while Tom gets better. She said I was the one who screwed up. Am I the jerk? I think OP is definitely the jerk here. Not only is this a relationship, this is your fiancé who has their own kid. I'm sorry, but if you're just expecting to always go on these trips, just the two of you guys without a 10-year-old kid popping up honestly more often than you'd like, you're in the wrong relationship. If this is where OP's drawing the line in the sand, they need to find somebody else that doesn't have kids. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another Am I the Jerk Here story that was crazier than any of the ones in this video, click on that left video. Or, if you missed my latest video, click on the right. But with that said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.